Great. Okay. Well, we'll make a start. So, welcome everyone, and welcome to Carers UK. Welcome to this afternoon's Share and Learn session. We're really pleased to welcome Suniti, who is a qualified bereavement counsellor, who's going to be talking to us about bereavement, grief, and when caring comes to an end. So everything to think about with that. So we do have some information on our website on when caring comes to an end, and we can share the link with you on that. But we've been really keen for quite a while to do a session on bereavement, and some of you have asked us for that. And I think one of the, throughout the pandemic, I mean, we're coming up to 400 sessions that we've run throughout the pandemic. So we've followed many of your lives as you've come along to Care for a Cuppa and our Share and Learn sessions, and you know, the different life events that you've been through, and some of you have been affected by bereavement during the last couple of years, and so we're really pleased to be running this session this afternoon, which we hope you'll find helpful. So my name is Michael, and I work in the carer support team at Carers UK, and well, I'm joined by my colleague Jane today, and I think our colleague Lucy will also be joining in a little while. And really pleased, as I said, that Ellie is able to join us this afternoon as well. Ellie left Carers UK last week, but Ellie was the person who kind of connected with Suniti to instigate and set up this session, and was keen to hear from Suniti as well. So welcome, Ellie. And just before I hand over to Suniti, if you could please, while Suniti is presenting, I will put her on spotlight, so you can just see Suniti on the screen, and she will be sharing slides. But if you just could keep yourself on mute while Suniti is presenting, that would be helpful. You can, I think you're all familiar with Zoom, but if you are quite new to it, you just can click on the mute little microphone icon to do that. But there will be plenty of opportunities for you to contribute, to ask questions and share your experiences as well. We do have closed captions if you'd find those helpful as well, which you can just click on the CC button, which you should see at the bottom of your screen, or you might need to click on more, 3 little dots and more, to get closed captions and have the subtitles at the bottom of your screen, if you'd find those helpful. And just to let you know, we are recording this afternoon's session as well, just so we can share it with many more carers. We know there's lots of carers who weren't able to join us this afternoon, so we can share it with many more carers who we know will find it helpful. Great. Okay, and you can, we do have the chat function as well. If you'd like to share experiences or ask questions, make comments in the chat throughout the session, you can do, and we'll highlight those in the interactive parts of the session. So great. So welcome, Suniti, and really pleased you could join us today, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen, and then I'll take a moment to introduce myself to you all properly. Start this. Can you all see that okay?
Yeah, that looks good, Suniti.
Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, and I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for joining the session with me today, and I really, really hope that you all have something positive that you take away from the session. There will be a chance for you all to discuss things with me at the end, so please feel free to take a note of anything you want to ask me, and we can have a chat about it. I'm just going to give you all a bit of background on me. So I'm Dr. Suniti. I'm a certified bereavement counsellor and clinical hypnotherapist. As a profession, I actually work as a dentist. So I have developed a form of dentistry that's holistic, combining my clinical skills as a dentist with hypnotherapy. And what I do is I work with anxious patients, nervous adults and children to help them cope with their fears, phobias, confidence issues, anxiety issues, stress, sleep management, and lifestyle issues like smoking and alcohol. So that's what I do as my job, but my interest in grief came from my own bereavement. So I was bereaved as a child when I lost my dad. I lost my dad at the age of 17. And through my process of navigating my grief, the things that I truly understood was that grief isn't really well understood or just understood or communicated in society. I think that there is an understanding that people think the grief is about the loss of a person, but actually there is a huge aftermath that I believe is created through grief that runs through and affects your life, your work, your relationships with other people. And what we are left to cope with is all of that. It's not just the missing the one person. There is a whole broader spectrum of things that we need to face when we're grieving. And I also realized that I think there is an expectation of grief to end at a certain point. And if I'm very honest with you, my grief I only started to really heal through my grief when I understood that grief then becomes a part of who we are. And we then continue to carry that with us and we learn to grow around our pain. And I think that understanding that grief ends is we need to change that. And we need to understand that we will grow around it and we will continue to carry that grief with us. So that is essentially a little bit about me. I then developed my hypnotherapy through my interests in my grief, and then I connected it with my dentistry. And I created my page called United in Grief, which is just a platform for me. It's a non-profit platform where I just share my own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, just to an open page for people to communicate with me if they ever feel that there is a topic they want to talk about, or just to read things that feel familiar that they can relate to. And it's just my way of, I guess, sharing my experiences to help other people. You're more than welcome to follow either of those pages and ever reach out to me if you feel that you need to. So that's just a little bit about me. The main objectives of today, so we will be talking about the grief experience, the process in understanding the things that you will go through when you are grieving, and how to become more aware, self-aware, in order to help yourself get through the process of grief. Ways to help you prepare for the changes that you will face and overcoming the changes that are made to your life through grief. And also techniques that you can call upon. So anxiety and sleep disturbance are really common effects of grief. So ways to deal with that. I will touch on hypnosis because it's something that I do. Muscle relaxation is a really great way to relieve the tension that we hold within our body when we're grieving or stressed or anxious, which they all come together. So that's just a breakdown of what we will run through today. And before we get going with this slide, the first thing I really would like to say to you all is that the work that you do as carers is so commendable. And I know that when you are grieving, or perhaps you're coming to a point where you know that you are going to be bereaved soon, the emotions are all over the place. There are so many different things that you could be experiencing. But I really hope through the processes of your grief, there are moments where you feel peace and satisfaction, a sense of humility and grace in really understanding that the what you do is so selfless, and actually you should feel so proud that you're able to impact the life of someone who is at these stages, and you're able to share those moments with them. I think it's really commendable, and actually you should be so proud of yourself for doing a job like that that's so selfless. This slide I've incorporated because it touches on the main topics of grief. So bereavement as the loss that we're trying to adjust to. Grief as our natural reaction to losing someone or something in our life. And we can grieve for multiple reasons. It's not just, we don't just grieve when we're faced with death. We grieve for many reasons. and mourning is the process that we acclimatize to. So those are the main things that we will be talking about. I've highlighted here difficulty adapting and leading to a normal life. That is one of the most common things that people that are grieving feel, that they just cannot continue leading a normal life. They can't find a way to continue and move forward with life. And it's one of the major things that we aim to get you to when we're doing bereavement counselling. It's one of the final steps in the process, is to getting you to a place where you are able to maintain a relationship with the person that has passed, but you're able to also lead a normal, healthy life at the same time. And it's a really common way that people describe the emotions in grief, is just being unable to get up in the morning and carry on. So you're not alone if that is something that you have felt. I also wanted to say that, like I said earlier, you can grieve for multiple reasons, but in your case as carers, you are grieving the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job that you do every day for that person, and the loss of the relationship you have with them. So actually the levels of your grief, people often would grieve for one of those reasons, but you're grieving for multiple. And I don't think it should be taken lightly. And you should seek the help that you can in any way, because the effects of that grief on you emotionally and with the physical sensations can be quite profound. And yeah, I honestly, I feel that the work that you do is amazing. So just wanted to say there was a huge amount of respect for you all. So the grief experience. The process of grieving is very, very unique to each person. It's very dependent on your relationship with the person that's passed, the nature of their death, the circumstances around their death. And there are a variety of ways that you can experience grief, also dependent on your personality type and how you are as a person. I think that the major parts of grieving, you will notice the changes in your feelings, thoughts, emotions, the physical sensations that you feel and experience, and then also behavior changes. And sometimes it's really important to identify those things and link them to your grief, because sometimes you wouldn't connect them necessarily. So the feelings, thoughts, and emotions, some of the most common ones and obvious ones are pain, hollowness, emptiness, fatigue, like I said earlier, inability to lead a normal life. I have highlighted some here that I think some people don't necessarily feel comfortable accepting or acknowledging. And I just want to say that when you're grieving, we need to normalize and accept every single emotion that we face. There's no stigma and there's no shame related to anything that you feel, because the deeper layers of our emotions unlock reasons as to why we feel those things. And when we accept them, that's the only way that we can then start to heal them. And I say that because some people perhaps wouldn't feel comfortable, expressing that they feel these ways, but it is possible to, and it's totally acceptable to. So I've written guilt. I've highlighted guilt here, and I think guilt can be attached to perhaps the life that has been lost, but yours is still continuing, and perhaps there's a guilt around that. There can also be a guilt in the time that you have invested in caring and loving for this person, whilst perhaps neglecting other aspects of your life. There can be resent about the time that you have given, and now perhaps that you have no direction as to where your life is leading. You could feel free, perhaps. There is no shame in accepting those things. I think it's really, really important that you are honest with yourself and a community that you create to share your feelings with or confide in. And it's totally normal to feel those ways, especially when a lot of your time is given to caring. I know that my mum wasn't necessarily a carer for my dad, but when he was unwell, a lot of the role that she played was like a carer. And it was really difficult because her life, just as much as his was hugely affected by his illness. And there is a lot of that will impact you psychologically. And it's okay for you to express those things and feel those things. The physical sensations, I've written the tightness in the throat, the breathlessness in your stomach, and also behavior. So a lot of sleep disturbance, loss of appetite, avoidance of gatherings, social networking, any reminders to do with the person. You almost want to mask your feelings and not have to face them. So there can be avoidance that develops with grief. One of the thoughts I did highlight here was loss of faith. I think some people think that death can sometimes bring you closer to God and religion. I think it can be quite opposite as well, though. I think that you can start to really question a lot of the things that you have deeply believed your whole life when you're bereaved, because there is a lot of loss of faith in the things that you believe in. You can start to really, really question fundamental things about your religion. And that's okay. I think if you feel that way, it's really important, again, to accept that, acknowledge what that means, and either reach out to someone who is spiritual guidance to you, or, reflect on what that means and why you're feeling that way. You need to be able to process and accept and move forward from the things you're feeling. You need to really accept them. So whatever it is that you're feeling, I think the first thing I would say in your grief experience is be able to accept it. That is one of the first things as grief counselors we want you to do, is accept your loss and accept the pain that you're feeling. So that's about the grief process. This brings me on to the vet process. So as with anything, there is a vet process to help you understand and explore an emotion. And in this case, the emotions that we feel when we're grieving, there is a vetting process for that. So what we aim to do through the vet process is explore the emotion, understand it better, and help create a better outcome. So the V in vets comes for validating. And when we're validating an emotion, it means that we're recognizing what that emotion is and we are naming it. We're not trying to justify it. We're not trying to change it, mask it, hide it. We're accepting the name of that emotion just as a piece of information. So as I said before, it could be resent, it could be sadness, it could be guilt, whatever it is, just the word, the label, jealousy, whatever. And it's just a piece of information. And the more accurate you are with labeling that emotion, the more accurately we can dive deeper into the layers of that emotion that could be more complex. Because again, the way that you will express an emotion is dependent on you as a person, the other experiences and circumstances around your grief. So the nature of how you will present a certain feeling can present completely different to the way that you really mean for it to feel. So validating your emotion is literally labeling what you're feeling as for what it is. And then the E in the vet process is explore. So when we're exploring the emotion, we're looking at why we're feeling that way and why we think we are feeling that way, understanding reasons for the emotion and where it comes from. And a bit later on, I will talk to you about emotional intelligence and trying to navigate where feelings come from and what they mean. So that's a really important one. And then the final one, T, is transform. And that is when we can start to take accountability for the way that we're feeling and work to create better outcomes for ourselves. So it's still possible to feel sad, but not have a negative outcome to our sadness. So it's about transforming negative feelings, but creating positive outcomes. And one of the most important things to know is that no emotion is negative or positive, even if we connotate it as negative. Sadness and anger and pain, they're not negative things. It's what we create with those feelings that brings us the negative and the positive. So if we can learn to vet our emotions, we can always channel a negative feeling into creating a more positive outcome or display of emotion. It's just really understanding yourself better. And I think with grief, I would never say that having external help I would never invalidate that. I think having therapy and grief counselling, even support networks is so, so important. But I do believe that the work that you do internally with yourself when you're grieving and the way that you learn to process your feelings and your emotions and work internally to heal, there is nothing like it. So if you are able to then start to learn how to change these things, you will really transform the way that you feel. I've put this slide in just to explain what I meant earlier when I said that we may think of emotions as negative and positive, but actually what they really mean is something quite different. It's often our display of that emotion that makes them negative or positive. So for example, sadness, all that sadness really means is that we have lost something that we truly value. And you know, sadness can be different for everyone. Some people could cry, some people could, you know, complete avoidance, shut themselves away. But all that it really means is that they have lost something, and there are ways that we can perhaps channel that to better use. Anger, there is something blocking our way or where we want to get to. Fear is a display of threat. It's when we feel that we are threatened physically or emotionally by something. That's where fear kicks in. And surprise is when something unexpected has happened. So surprise isn't necessarily a happy surprise. It doesn't mean something really great has happened. It's just the sense that something that we weren't expecting to happen has happened. So you could feel all of these feelings, but I think each person would display them differently. And when you look at the reaction of something with each individual, and then you process actually where that feeling is coming from, where that emotion or what that emotion is telling us, it could be quite different to what it's looking like. I think it's really important to understand that how you display your emotions. So I'll show you a slide. It's 2 slides later, but it's actually a really good way for you to understand how to transform your way of displaying an emotion to make it a bit more positive. I have put this slide in here. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my cursor, which has disappeared. There you go. I've put this in here. I'm going to include the link at the end of the presentation in a chat so that you could all click on this if you'd like to. This is Plutchik's Wheel of Emotion. It looks quite complicated, but what this is basically telling us is how we have 8 core emotions, and the 8 core emotions are displayed in the center of this wheel. But as we branch out, those core emotions get weaker, but then they can interact with other emotions next to them to form more complex emotions. So actually an emotion that we are presenting could be the root of that emotion can be very, very different. And that's basically what this psychologist, Robert Plutchik, developed many years ago. And it's possibly one of the best ways that people have understood how emotional pairing works. And also that negative emotions, emotions that present negatively can also be coming from a more positive place. So the center of this circle has the darker, deeper color. They're core emotions, and they become milder as we move out. And then the emotions in the black and white bits, those are complex emotions. So those are emotions that are a mixture of different emotions put together. So this is the chart. I don't know if you guys would want to copy this down or take a picture of it, but I think this is a really important way of holding yourself accountable for the ways that your emotions present. So you could think of, being sad and what that may present as. So you could be crying, you could be sleeping, you could be hiding away. And then if you think practically and objectively about better ways to use that emotion, you could think of using something to burn your energy. So connecting with other people outside, listening to uplifting music and gardening, or a hobby that does bring you joy is a better way to use your feeling to do something that you have a better outcome. Fear, again, some people would feel anxiety. They would stop moving forward because they're feeling fear. But a better use of that emotion is to create a plan, confide in someone that can help you, and rationalize your thoughts. I think if you could fill this chart out for every emotion with the negative use of an emotion, and then anything that you think could be a better way of behaving each time you felt that emotion, what would happen is that every time you feel a certain way, you can stop and you can think, actually, I know a better way for me to deal with this right now. And you try a new thing every time. And what you will then be able to do is hold yourself accountable for the reaction of your emotion. And you can start to create better outcomes, because what we become so used to doing is behaving in a certain way. And it's almost embedded in us that if we're feeling extremely sad, we're going to just cancel all our plans and go and do something else and essentially hide away or sit with ourselves and I'm not saying you shouldn't feel sad. Being sad and crying is a part of grieving. It is a release of your emotions, but there is a fine line in it becoming consuming, and us letting that happen. So when we're at the stage of being able to control those things a bit better, we can start to create better outcomes for ourselves. So I'm going to start to talk to you guys about coping strategies. And there are coping strategies I've divided into two categories. There are ways to cope with your loss before it has occurred, and then after. So this slide is about coping, preparing yourself for your loss before you are actually bereaved. And I think one of if there is any way of finding a positive in your circumstances as carers, is that you have the ability to prepare yourself mentally before you actually get there. And I guess people that face sudden death don't have that. So you know what is coming, and you can therefore create ways and prepare yourself before in a way that other people wouldn't be able to do. That doesn't for a second mean that you're not going to be grieving, though. You are still going to go through the entire process of grief. You can't skip through it. There's no shortcut. You have to go the whole way around through the process of grief. And just knowing that it's coming doesn't change things in regards to the way, the impact of the grief that you're going to experience. But what it means is that you can start to, I guess, set yourself up for the journey that you're about to face. And there are ways that you can help yourself, and you'll find really valuable, I think, because you can build yourself symbols and create rituals and memories in a way that other people wouldn't be able to do. And I think symbols are really nice. Symbols are a way that you can help yourself revisit places after your loved one has gone. You can create memories with them. So one of the most common things I tell people is to go to the garden centre with the person that they're caring for, and either together you choose a tree or a plant, and you plant it together in a place, again, involving the person as much as you can in the process. So you know that they were there, it's something they have been involved in with you, and you can plant that in a place that you are able to then visit once they have passed. And I think it's a really nice element of you being able to continue your care as you nurture this plant or tree and it grows. And it's a symbol of something that you have built together that will continue to grow. I think it's very healing and therapeutic to do. That's probably one of my favorite ones. Another one is consider the hobbies of the person that you're caring for, and create tangible things through their hobbies for you to cherish. And to keep in their memory. So whether that's if they like sewing, if they like arts and crafts, painting, I've talked about gardening as well. Involve yourself in everything and anything that they enjoy doing or you do for them, with them. And that will give you tangible things to hold onto and remember them in the moments where you're at a stage that you can, and it's not too painful for you, because you will value those things so much. A lot of people believe that robins are spiritual birds, and I'm not sure what your spiritual beliefs are. And a lot, some people think believing these things is a bit woo-woo and it's strange too, but I think religion can't be proved and people still believe it. So if there are certain things that you decide to do or rituals that you create that bring you peace, it's all about finding peace. It's all about you feeling peace and feeling connected somehow with the person that has passed. in doing activities that you can do alone without them. So if you feel peace in doing that, I think you know, having bird houses around wherever you can go, and you know, still put bird food and seeds and things like that, and you feel really humbled when you get robins visiting, and if that gives you peace, then that is absolutely fine. Memorial benches are really popular. You could start to involve the person in the choice of colour, where that will be, if they have a favourite place or park they used to visit or you have been to together. It just makes it more personal and more important, I think, although it may be painful, but it's the aspect of them not being with you forever is not hidden from either of you. So I think that if you can together create these things, you will just cherish them so much more. Photo albums, so taking pictures together with each other, with other people, of them doing things that make them truly happy, and creating an album that you can then look at and reflect either on significant days or events, is really healing. Music, I think music is really healing. Any music, actually, happy music, I think is great. But if you can create a playlist of music that person particularly likes, or it reminds you both of happy times together, I think creating that playlist is so nice to have to commemorate them after. So I think it's a really nice way of playing, again, at key events, key times that you will face without them in the future, to commemorate them. I think it's a lovely thing to do, and again, that you can involve them in. And as I said before, even though you can start to do these things before and you can involve that person, by no means does that mean you are not going to grieve, because you will. There's no way out of that. It just means that you will have more personal ways, I guess, to experience feeling close to them. And that's a really important stage for us to get you to. This slide, so we talked about the coping strategies before, and this one is about after. So as grief counsellors, our main objective is getting you to accept the reality of your loss, help you process your pain, adjust to the world without the deceased, and also helping you find a meaningful connection with that person while still moving on with a healthy life. I think I touched on that before. So these things are all in order to help you do that. So accepting the reality of your loss, I think when you can, being able to visit the place where you have lost that person, or perhaps shared the most memories with them, is a really significant way for you to just comprehend that this is reality. And the sooner you do that, if you think of that as step one, the sooner you get past that point of, because I think there is a bit of disbelief in the beginning when you're grieving, and because you're confused and things are different. I think it's a really important way of helping you accept the reality of your loss and the changes that have been made to your life. Processing the pain of grief. So that's how we navigate our emotions, our physical sensations, behavior patterns. And we ultimately manage the aftermath that I described in the beginning. So our relationship with other members of our family, our sleep, our loss of appetite, and we become really self-aware. So creating a safe space around us where we're able to express how we're feeling, whether that's with a network, a social network that we communicate with, or even just journaling. We'll talk about journaling later, but journaling your own thoughts and feelings so you can reflect on them and become quite self-aware of the ways that you're expressing your grief, because it will be different for each person, but it will also safeguard you from perhaps expressing it in a way that could be harmful for you without even realizing that you're going that way. So I think that those are important things that we'll discuss. Protecting your peace and adjusting to the new world. So protecting your peace, I think it's really important that you consider overcoming obstacles that you know that you're going to face and having contingency plans. So you need to sit with yourself and think of scenarios that you know, or you're unsure of how you will feel in those environments or around certain people, or perhaps you already know that they will make you uncomfortable or they could be triggering for you. And you need to think of ways of helping yourself feel safe in those situations, whether it's perhaps taking someone with you, confiding in someone about the way that you feel, or if it's, you know, creating the scenario in a different place so that you're easing yourself in each time. I think protecting your peace is really important, and also reassigning your time, because one of the biggest things that you will perhaps notice is that your time is now empty. You don't know how to fill your time where you had given so much time to caring for this person. So building a new schedule is really important. I think waking up every day and having a plan. I'm not saying have a schedule of like from the morning to the evening, no, because it's not practical, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen in the beginning at all, to be honest. You need to give yourself time. But if at least there is a plan of doing maybe one thing every other day, even if it's a walk, even if it's deciding that you're going to cook something, or if it's starting slowly then to join the gym or certain classes, visiting social network groups, or, you know, revisiting the hobbies that you perhaps have started to enjoy with the person that has passed. Starting to build a new life and a new routine will help you fill your time, because otherwise you will just feel the void of your grief so much more. I think that's important. And then the adjusting to the new life, essentially, that you are now left to create and fill your space with, is, you know, planning for key events, I think, is really important when you're adjusting to your new life. And unsettling reminders and triggers, I think, is probably one of the most disturbing things. So death anniversaries, birthdays, wedding anniversaries, things like that. But also having contingency plans and routines and rituals that you set in place for those things, so that when you face them, you're prepared. This is just a little spider diagram, basically, of all the things I have discussed with you. So practical coping strategies. Journaling. I talked about journaling very briefly a couple of slides ago. Journaling is a really amazing way for you to literally, like I said, so in the vet process, you validate your emotion, just writing down what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And what it enables you to do is then later reflect on those things and recognize patterns, situations, and perhaps people that create or make those feelings worse for you, whether they're negative or better for you if they're positive. And then what you can start to do is manage yourself. You can start to lead yourself into a more healthy mindset by realizing, okay, this isn't good for me, and this does help me. And you will start to want to do more of those things. Or what it will do is help you understand that in this situation, this is how I feel. Each time I feel this way, I'm going to call upon some of my breathing techniques, or I'm going to step outside, or whatever it is that works for you that you figure, you're going to call upon those things. But I think by journaling each day and just writing down what you've experienced at certain times, whether it was you turned the TV on and something came on that was really triggering for you, or somebody said something that you found really, it wasn't very mindful of your situation. I think whatever you experience, just writing it down, because what you're doing is building a map of all your emotions that you can then reflect on to manage yourself better. Is it in your grief, you being able to help yourself is the biggest, most useful tool that you will find. So rituals, so finding a positive way of utilizing the pain that you feel. So like I said, gardening, trying to build something beautiful from what you're feeling, and giving yourself rituals to reconnect with the person that has passed is so important. Whether it's going to feed the ducks, or, you know, just enjoying some time with other members that you know have felt the grief that you do, where you talk about nice things together, or people that you don't know at all. So like we're talking now in group networks with people that have felt the same way you have, because I think grief can also be quite lonely. So I think it's really nice. I think some of the greatest friends actually I have carried through my life are people that I have connected through with their grief. And it's it does unite you. So hence the name United in Grief. I think people that are bereaved are uniquely connected with each other because you share a feeling and an emotion and a pain that I guess nobody else can understand. And it can really bring you together. So even amongst you, it would be really good for you all to talk and share your thoughts and feelings. Finding peace is in the things I said to you, even if the things that you are enjoying to do that bring you peace are just slightly bizarre, it's fine because they're bringing you peace and that's what you need. Planning for key events and managing unsettling reminders is so important, as I've said before. So if key dates are coming up and you know that they are going to be triggering for you, don't just expect yourself to wake up on the day and avoid that today is the day, or that you're going to try and pretend it's not today. That is not going to happen, and you will spiral and you will do yourself more harm by behaving in that way. You should have a plan, whether you share that plan with other people, friends, family. I'm sure there are lots of people that would love to be a part of and share your grief with you, but have a plan. So I personally, on death anniversaries, we have a big lunch, we pray, and we just sit together, and sometimes we share memories, and it is sometimes disturbing, and sometimes, you know, there are tears, but it's definitely a better way than ignoring your pain and your grief. So I think planning for unsettling reminders and key events is really important. And also in accepting, actually, maybe this time I don't feel okay and I don't want to do certain things, but as long as you have a plan. So meditation, yoga, things like group networks, so seeking help. Hypnosis, I will touch on, but hypnosis is a really great way for you to manage your thoughts, sleep disturbances, anxiety issues, and muscle tension that can present from stress and anxiety. So I'll give you some sample recordings of that later, but they're all really great ways of managing your pain and your grief. I think affirmations and thought direction. So each time you feel that you are spiraling into negative thoughts is reaffirming to yourself that, you know, there is still life that is so worth living, and you deserve to be here, and you deserve to have it. You deserve to be happy. There is no shame in that. And, you know, the feeling connected to the person that has passed and knowing that they are still some way a part of your life, and visualizing you, seeing yourself 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, and knowing that you will still feel that love and still feel that connection with the person, but you can still be happy, and visualizing yourself doing the things that you still want to do and achieve, and knowing that you can. And I think it's important that you do that. So let me take you to the next slide. So super calm breaths. This is a breathing technique we teach in hypnosis. Actually, it's a really, really quick, easy method for you to call upon entirely on your own. You don't need anyone with you to do it. And what it does is it's a way of tricking your body back into a state of calm. When we become stressed and anxiety kicks in, we can then spiral into panic. And what happens through the physiology of our body is our breathing is affected, which then sends further signals, and it's a spiral that will keep getting worse and worse. And what we can do is override that system just by managing our breathing. So what happens actually is we go into fight and flight mode. Our nervous system takes us there, and we start to hyperventilate. I don't know if you can ever think of a time where you've been really panicked and you know that your breathing rate increases and you're, you know, becoming breathless. And a way to just stop for a second and call upon a breathing technique, and you continue it 3 to 5 times, is brilliant, because you will override that system. You'll be able to calm down. You'll be able to oxygenate your brain and your muscles, and you'll be able to rationalize what is actually happening and stop yourself from reaching a point that is more negative and spiraling each time. It takes a bit of practice, and then I've put on here essentially what you need to do is inhale as deeply as you can into your lungs for 7 counts. And each count is according to the way that you count yourself in your mind. You don't count out loud. Once you reach the 7, you hold your breath for 2 counts. And then you release your breath for 11 counts. So the exhale is what's calming. It's releasing all the carbon dioxide from our lungs. And when you're breathing that deeply out of your lungs, you will feel that you will literally, because you're breathing out for more counts than you breathe in, you're squeezing out the lungs, squeezing out the air from your lungs from the most deep parts, and you will feel yourself running out of air to breathe out. Then you hold again, and then you breathe in again. And you do this 3 times. So I'll do it for you. I'll count on the screen. So just like that. So in for 7, hold, out for 11, and hold again. And you do that and you will feel your body relaxing each time. It's a really good technique to use. Again, there has to be the desire to not want to feel, to know that you can control your panic and your anxiety, but it's a really good technique to use. In here, I've included some sample recordings. You can't obviously click on the links on the screen now. I will post them in the chat after. But these are mini tasters, essentially, of hypnosis that you can use to progressively relax and unwind your muscles, relieve tension that you're feeling in your body, and also to help you sleep. A lot of people suffer with sleep. I know I suffered with sleep disturbance. So it's a really good way for you to just understand how hypnotherapy can work. I feel hypnotherapy is so useful. It's poorly understood, I think. Essentially what hypnosis is, an altered state of consciousness where your subconscious mind is in a state of hypersuggestibility. So what that means is when you're hypnotized, your mind is in a state where the therapist is able to give you suggestions to make changes, and you're more open to them. So changes in your attitude, your thoughts, your beliefs, behaviors, all of which become really deeply embedded in your subconscious mind. So you're unable to just change them like that, but you're able to accept the changes that you know you want to make, that you struggle to, more easily when you're hypnotized. And then you can continue to make those changes. So you're more than welcome to try them out. They're just on YouTube. They're just little examples of each of those types of hypnotherapy. So the muscle relaxation and progressive relaxation you would just do in the evening. The sleep one you should do when you are trying to sleep. Obviously it's on YouTube, so you may get some adverts, but just so you get an idea of how much you can relax when you focus your mind that deeply, it's really, really, really great. I have put on here, if any of you do have Spotify, there's a really great hypnotherapist called Donald Curry, and he has hypnotherapy sessions available on Spotify for all sorts of topics, letting go of negative thoughts and emotions, stress, anxiety, sleep disturbance, pain, an array of things that you could possibly be experiencing as someone who's bereaved. Even fear, there is an aspect of fear. Obviously, if you want tailored hypnotherapy sessions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me so I can create them more towards your scenario and your situation. But these are generic ones and they work really, really well. Otherwise, that is all I have for today. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. And I hope you found something useful in everything that I've said today.